Larry Bird did not just beat them, he warned them first. Larry Bird did not just embarrass legends. He made them watch their own defeat before it happened. That is the part that still feels impossible. Not the shot, not the trash talk, not even the championships. The coldest thing about Larry Bird was that he would stand in front of another grown man, sometimes a Hall of Famer, sometimes one of the toughest defenders alive, and calmly tell him exactly what was coming next. Then he would do it anyway. Imagine being Reggie Miller, a rookie with a big mouth and a future built on confidence, thinking you could get inside Larry Bird's head at the free throw line. Reggie starts talking. He thinks he can shake him, but Bird turns around like he has heard the funniest thing in the world. He basically lets him know, "Are you serious? I'm the best shooter this game has ever seen. You think you can ice me?" Then Bird steps back to the line, knocks down the shots, and leaves Reggie walking away with a lesson he would never forget. But Reggie was not alone. Magic Johnson heard it, Xavier McDaniel heard it, Dennis Rodman felt it, Dominique Wilkins lived through it in a Game 7 war, different arenas, different uniforms, different moments, but every story ends with the same chilling pattern. Bird said what he was about to do. The defender knew it was coming. The whole building could feel it coming. And still, nobody could stop it. That is what separates Larry Bird from an ordinary trash talker. Most players talk to create noise. Bird talked like he was reading tomorrow's newspaper. He did not bluff. He announced. He predicted. He turned pressure into theater, then forced the opponent to play the losing role. Xavier McDaniel may have experienced the purest version of it. Tie game, clock running low, every defender locked in, every fan holding their breath. And instead of staying quiet, Bird walks over and tells McDaniel where he is going to catch the ball. He tells him he is going to shoot it right in his face. McDaniel knows the play. He knows the spot. He knows the warning. Then Bird curls off the screen, catches it exactly where he said he would, rises over him, and buries the jumper. That is not just basketball. That is psychological warfare. Because when a player beats you with speed, you can blame the body. When he beats you with height, you can blame genetics. But when he tells you the future, gives you the answer before the test, and you still fail, that loss stays with you forever. So the real question is not whether Larry Bird was great. The real question is how one man could make other legends sound like witnesses at his trial, all repeating the same confession. He warned us first, and we still could not stop. Where are you watching from right now? Drop your city in the comments, and if you believe Larry Bird was the coldest trash talker in NBA history, press 1. If you think someone else was even more dangerous, press 2 and tell us who. Don't forget to subscribe, because this story is only getting colder from here. The prophecy behind every shot. What made Larry Bird terrifying was not just that he could shoot. The NBA has seen shooters. It has seen scorers. It has seen stars who get hot and make a defense look helpless for one night. Bird was different because he made the game feel pre-written. When he told Magic Johnson he was going to wait until Magic was one step away and then shoot it in his face, that was not a reckless line from a man hoping to sound brave. That was Bird reading the court before the court even moved. He had already measured the distance, the timing, the closeout, the release, and the half-second window where Magic would arrive just late enough to look powerless. Then the play unfolded exactly the way Bird had described it. Magic sprinted. Bird rose. The ball left his hands, and the net answered before the defender could do anything about it. That is why the stories sound almost supernatural when players tell them years later. Bird was not faster than everybody. He did not jump higher than everybody. He simply processed the game in a way that made elite athletes look a step behind. While everyone else was reacting to the pass, he had already seen the screen. While defenders were chasing the ball, he had already predicted the rotation. While a rebound was still hanging in the air, he already knew where it would land. That vision turned ordinary trash talk into something colder. It was not noise. It was a forecast. And when a man keeps forecasting your embarrassment and keeps being right, the damage goes deeper than the scoreboard. It gets inside your pride. It makes you question your own instincts. It makes a defender think, how did he know? And that little moment of doubt was where Bird lived. Because once you started wondering whether he was ahead of you, he already was. French Lick built the fire. To understand why Larry Bird played with that kind of cold certainty, you have to leave the bright lights of Boston Garden and go back to French Lick, Indiana. That is where the legend was sharpened before the world ever knew his name. Bird did not come from comfort. He came from a small town, a struggling family, and a childhood where nothing was guaranteed. The confidence people saw on the court was not born from an easy life. It was built over pain, insecurity, and the constant feeling that if he stopped working, someone else would take everything from him. That fear followed him even after he became great. It pushed him into empty gyms. It made repetition feel like survival. It made every missed shot personal and every weakness something that had to be buried under practice. When Bird first went to Indiana University, the size of the program and the pressure around him hit harder than expected. and he left after only a short time. For another player, that might have been the beginning of the end. For Bird, it became fuel. He went back home with doubts, but he did not let those doubts own him. He used them. He rebuilt himself through work, through stubbornness, through hours nobody celebrated. He was not blessed with the explosive athleticism that defines so many stars. So he mastered angles, he mastered footwork, he mastered timing. He made the simple things deadly because he repeated them until they became automatic. That is why his confidence felt so insulting to opponents. It was not fake, it was earned. Every time Bird told the defender what was coming, there were thousands of unseen shots behind that sentence. Every cold stare had years of hunger inside it. French Lick did not just produce Larry Bird, it produced the fear that made him impossible to satisfy. The rookie who learned too late. Reggie Miller would eventually become one of the greatest trash talkers basketball ever produced. But before he became that fearless voice, he was a rookie who made the mistake of testing Larry Bird. That detail matters because Reggie was not some quiet kid afraid of the moment. He had edge, he had confidence, he had the kind of mouth that would one day drive opponents crazy. But in that moment, standing near Bird at the free throw line, he did not realize he was stepping into a different kind of arena. Reggie tried to talk. He tried to shake him. He tried to do what confident young players do when they want to prove they belong. Bird did not panic. He did not fire back with a long speech. He looked at him like the whole idea was ridiculous. Then he reminded Reggie who he was dealing with. The message was simple. You really think you can ice me? You really think your words can touch the best shooter in the building? Then Bird made the shots and let the silence do the rest. That was the lesson. Not every legend has to scream. Some legends humiliate you by staying calm. Reggie walked away from that moment understanding something the veterans already knew. Larry Bird was not a man you talked into mistakes. He was a man who used your talk as permission to punish you. That is why so many players still tell these stories with a strange mix of pain and respect. They are not just remembering a basket, they are remembering the moment they realized the mind game had already been lost. Bird could turn a rookie's confidence into a classroom. He could take one little comment and make it a scar. And for Reggie Miller, that day was not just a funny story. It was a warning passed from one generation of trash talkers to the next. Never wake up Larry Bird unless you are ready to live with what happens after. Xavier McDaniel was given the answer. The Xavier McDaniel story may be the cleanest example of Larry Bird's cruelty as a competitor, because McDaniel was not soft. He was not intimidated easily. He was one of the toughest players of his era, the kind of man who welcomed contact and did not back down from anybody. That is what makes the story so devastating. Bird did not break a weak defender. He broke a strong one by giving him the answer and still making him fail. The game was tight. The clock was low. The entire possession was loaded with pressure. Most players would keep quiet, hide the plan, and hope for just enough space to get a shot off. Bird did the opposite. He walked over and told McDaniel where he was going to catch the ball. He told him he was going to shoot it right in his face. That should have been an advantage for the defender. McDaniel knew the spot, he knew the action, he knew the ending Bird wanted, but knowing and stopping are two different things. Bird ran the play like he had already watched it happen. He curled to the exact area he had named, caught the ball in rhythm, rose over McDaniel's contest, and knocked it down. The shot itself was great. The psychological damage was greater. McDaniel had not been surprised. He had been prepared, he had been warned, and still, Bird made him look like a witness instead of a defender. That is the kind of defeat that follows a player for years. It removes every excuse. You cannot say you did not know. You cannot say the play fooled you. You cannot say luck stole the moment. Bird told you. You stood there, he delivered. That was his genius. He understood that humiliation is heavier when the opponent sees it coming. He did not just want the basket. He wanted the defender to feel the inevitability of it before the ball ever left his hands. Magic Johnson saw the genius up close. Magic Johnson may have understood Larry Bird better than anyone because their rivalry was not built on one game or one insult. It was a long war between two basketball minds that changed the league. Magic was not easy to fool. He saw the floor like a genius, controlled pace like a conductor, and turned teammates into weapons with a single pass. So when Magic talks about Bird's mind, it carries a different weight. He was not watching from a distance. He was standing inside the storm. That is why the story of Bird telling him the shot was coming feels so powerful. Magic knew how impossible it was to hear a man explain the plan during live action and still be too late. Bird understood not only where Magic would be, but how fast he would close, when his feet would arrive, and exactly when the shot needed to leave his hands. That is not ordinary confidence. That is command. And Bird did it against one of the smartest players who ever touched a basketball. There was also the night when Magic sat injured and Bird walked by before the game as if he already owned the evening. Bird promised he was about to put on a show, then went out and did exactly that. Magic could only accept the truth. When Bird talked that way, it usually meant something bad was coming for the other team. The beauty of their rivalry is that it never stayed trapped in hatred. On the court, they wanted to destroy each other. Off the court, respect slowly turned into friendship. That makes the legend richer, because it shows Bird's coldness was not the whole man. It was a weapon he brought to competition. He could be ruthless under the lights and still human outside them. But inside the game, friendship did not save you. Respect did not protect you. If Magic was late by one step, Bird made him pay like everybody else. The assassin stare. Every great player wants the ball when things are going well. Larry Bird wanted it when the air got tight and the room started closing in. That is where the assassin part of him appeared. Teammates described a switch in his face, a blank coldness that showed up when the game became serious. It was not wild emotion. It was not panic. It was something quieter and more dangerous. Bird hated losing in a way that seemed almost personal to his body. Winning gave him satisfaction, but losing burned him deeper. That kind of wiring creates a different type of closer. Some players think about the consequences. Bird seemed to erase them. He would demand the ball, clear the space, and make everyone else understand that the moment belonged to him now. Even his own teammates felt the force of it. If someone else had the hot hand, it did not always matter. When the game reached that final edge, Bird believed the possession should come through him. That belief could sound arrogant, but his career kept giving it evidence. And the arrogance became even more dangerous because he used humor like a blade. Against young Dennis Rodman, Bird did not just score, he turned the matchup into a public conversation. He attacked, scored again, and then looked toward the Pistons bench as if asking whether this was really the plan. Rodman would become one of the most relentless defenders in NBA history, but as a rookie, he was forced to feel what so many others felt. Bird did not need to overpower you physically to make you feel trapped. He could talk to the bench, talk to his teammates, talk to the defender, and still keep complete control of the possession. That was the nightmare. Most players lose focus when they talk too much. Bird sharpened his focus through the talk. Every word increased the pressure. Every basket made the next sentence heavier. By the time the defender got angry, Bird had already won the emotional battle. The Game 7 gunfight. If anyone ever proved that Larry Bird's greatness was not just myth, it was Dominique Wilkins in Game 7 of the 1,988 Eastern Conference semifinals. Because Dominique did not fold, he did not become a background character in Larry's story. He came into Boston Garden ready to fight, ready to stare down the defending power of the East, and ready to prove that Atlanta was not there to be remembered as just another team that almost scared the Celtics. That is what makes the game legendary. Bird was not destroying someone who disappeared under pressure. He was staring across at a superstar who was answering everything with pride, power, and fearlessness. The Hawks had pushed the Celtics to the edge, and inside Boston Garden, the air felt heavy before the fourth quarter even began. This was not a normal playoff game anymore. It was a season hanging by a thread. Every possession felt permanent. Every miss felt dangerous. Every basket sounded like a warning shot. Dominique attacked with the violence and grace that made him one of the most explosive scorers the league had ever seen. He rose over defenders, finished through contact, and kept dragging Atlanta closer every time Boston looked ready to take control. But Bird did not blink. That was the difference. A lot of players become emotional when another superstar starts matching them. Bird became colder. The more Dominique hit, the more Bird seemed to lock into that terrifying place where nothing outside the next possession mattered. The crowd could feel it. His teammates could feel it. The Hawks could feel it too, even if nobody wanted to say it out loud. Larry Bird was not going to let someone else walk into his building and write the ending. Then the fourth quarter turned into something larger than basketball. It felt like two fighters standing in the center of the ring, refusing to step back. Wilkins hit. Bird answered, Wilkins rose again. Bird answered again. Dominique kept throwing haymakers, and instead of fading, Bird invited the war. He scored from the post, off the glass, from mid-range, and from impossible angles, where the defense did almost everything right except stop the ball from falling. That is what made the duel cruel. Dominique was brilliant enough to win that night against almost anyone else. He gave Atlanta the kind of performance that should have become a franchise legend with a happy ending. But Bird was relentless in the way only Bird could be. He did not just want to survive the moment. He wanted to own it. He wanted the final memory of that game to belong to Boston, to the Garden, and to the cold-eyed man who refused to let another superstar take his crown. By the time Bird hit the shots that finally pushed Boston over the top, the game felt less like a victory and more like an escape from a fire. Dominique had not failed. He had produced greatness, but Bird had answered greatness with something even heavier: inevitability. Sometimes basketball is cruel enough to give both players a masterpiece and still send one of them home. On that night, Larry Bird made sure he was not the one leaving. The body paid the price. The danger in building a legend around cold shots, fearless talk, and impossible confidence is that people forget the body underneath it. Larry Bird looked inevitable, but he was not invincible. In fact, part of what makes his story so heavy is that so much of his greatness came while his body was quietly falling apart. Fans remember the jumper, the stare, the trash talk, the no-look passes, and the way opponents kept telling stories about being warned before they were beaten. But behind that mythology was a man fighting pain almost every night. The back injury that changed his career did not happen in some glamorous playoff collision. It came from something painfully ordinary, shoveling gravel while helping build a driveway for his mother. That detail almost sounds too humble to belong in the story of an NBA icon, but it fits Bird perfectly. He was stubborn, physical, loyal to where he came from, and never comfortable acting like a superstar who was too important for hard work. But that ordinary act came with an extraordinary cost. After that, his back was never truly the same. The pain followed him everywhere. It followed him into practices, it followed him onto team flights, it followed him into playoff games where every cut, every rebound, every defensive slide asked something from a spine that was already betraying him. There were nights when simply getting his body ready to play became a battle before the real battle even began. Treatment, stretching, adjustments, and pain management became part of the routine. And then, after all of that, he still had to walk onto the floor and face the best athletes in the world as if nothing was wrong. That is the part highlight reels rarely explain. Some of those impossible passes came from a man who could barely move the way he once did. Some of those late game jumpers came from legs and a back that had already paid a price before tip-off. Some of those cold-blooded warnings came from a player whose mind was still 2 seconds ahead, even while his body was begging him to stop. Bird's genius did not disappear when the pain arrived. If anything, it forced him to become even more precise. He had to win with positioning, anticipation, timing, and nerve, because the easy athletic answers were never really his to begin with. But greatness can be expensive, and Bird kept paying. The same fire that made him a champion also made him ignore warning signs most people would have respected. He demanded everything from himself because that was the only way he knew how to live inside the game. Eventually, there was nothing left to demand. When he retired in 1992, it was not because the mind had stopped seeing the floor. It was because the body could no longer carry the vision. That ending gives a legend a different kind of power. Bird did not float through greatness untouched. He bought it with hours, pain, pressure, and pieces of himself he could never get back. The warnings he gave defenders became part of NBA history, but the warnings his own body gave him were just as real. For years, he ignored them, kept playing, kept talking, kept shooting, and kept delivering. That is why Larry Bird's story is not just about dominance. It is about the cost of refusing to surrender, even when the opponent across from you is no longer another player, but your own breaking body. What Larry Bird really taught the NBA, Larry Bird's story is not just about trash talk. It is not just about a man pointing to a spot, calling the shot, and making another defender live with the embarrassment forever. Those moments became legendary because they were loud, cold, and unforgettable. But underneath every famous line was something much deeper than arrogance. Bird's confidence was not empty noise. It was the sound of preparation so complete that pressure could not shake it. That is the real lesson hidden behind every story. Larry Bird could tell a defender what was coming because he had earned the right to believe in his own work. He had studied the floor. He had repeated the footwork. He had trained the release until it felt automatic. He understood angles, timing, spacing, rebounds, defensive rotations, and human fear. He knew when a defender was tired. He knew when a closeout would come late. He knew when a player across from him was starting to think too much. Bird did not just beat bodies, he beat decisions before they were made. Strategically, that is what made him so dangerous. He was never the fastest athlete on the court, and he was rarely the most explosive. But he controlled the game because he understood that basketball is not only played above the rim, it is played in the mind, in the half second before a defender reacts, in the small space between confidence and doubt. Bird lived in that space. He turned fundamentals into weapons. He turned patience into punishment. He turned trash talk into a psychological test that most opponents failed before the ball even left his hand. For modern players, young athletes, and even people far outside basketball, Bird's career teaches a powerful truth. Swagger without work is just noise, but swagger backed by preparation becomes pressure. You cannot talk like Larry Bird unless you work like Larry Bird. You cannot demand the final shot unless you have spent years preparing for the weight of that moment. You cannot ask the world to believe in your confidence if you have not built it in silence first. But there is another side to the lesson, and it may be even more important. Greatness has a cost. Bird's fire made him a champion, an MVP, a legend, a coach, and an executive who kept winning long after his playing days were over. But that same fire pushed him through pain, through damage, through a body that was quietly breaking down. He gave everything to the game, and eventually, the game took everything his body could give. That is why his story should not be reduced to simple toughness. Yes, Bird was fearless. Yes, he was cold. Yes, he wanted the biggest moments. But his career also reminds us that ambition needs balance. Compete with everything you have, but do not forget the human being inside the competitor. Push yourself, but do not destroy yourself just to prove you are strong. Want to win, but do not lose your peace chasing every battle like it is life or death. And that is what makes the ending of the Magic Johnson rivalry so meaningful. These two men spent years trying to break each other on the court. They carried cities, franchises, expectations, and the future of the NBA on their shoulders. But when the battles cooled, respect remained. The rivalry turned into friendship. The war became brotherhood. That is the most beautiful version of competition. Fight hard, compete honestly, refuse to back down, and still leave room to honor the person standing across from you. Larry Bird destroyed legends because he saw the game early, worked like someone was always chasing him, hated losing with every part of himself, and had the courage to deliver under pressure. But his legacy is bigger than fear. It is about vision. It is about discipline. It is about earning your confidence before you show it to the world. And it is also about remembering that even the coldest competitor is still human. So when people ask why players still tell Larry Bird stories decades later, the answer is simple. They are not just remembering that he beat them. They are remembering that he warned them first. He told them the ending, made them live through it, and left them with a memory they could never erase. If this story made you see Larry Bird differently, hit the like button, share this video with another real NBA fan, and subscribe for more stories about the legends, rivalries, drama, and hidden moments that shape basketball history. And now tell us in the comments. Press 1 if you believe Larry Bird was the coldest mind the NBA has ever seen. Press 2 if you think another legend owned the mental game even more.